He doesn't hate women. He doesn't fear love. He simply knows what peace feels like now. Most people don't ask older men why they stay single. They assume it's loneliness. They call it giving up. But what if it's none of that? What if it's something harder to explain and far more powerful? Today we'll explore 6 quiet truths that most men only admit after 60, not to defend their choice, but to honor it. Leave a quiet comment if this feels like your truth. Freedom became my quiet reward. He's already loved deeply, and that was enough. Some men reach a point where they stop chasing love, not because they've given up on it, but because they've had it, and in its truest form. He remembers her no as an abstract memory, but in texture. The sound of her humming while she watered the plants, the softness of her robe on Sunday mornings, the way she always poured his coffee second, but handed it to him first. He remembers the silence between them, the good kind, when nothing needed to be said. And he remembers the arguments too, the nights they slept back to back, both too proud to reach across the sheet, the medical scares, the caregiving, the endurance. Because love, when lived fully, is not just about passion, it's about persistence. For some men, that love ended in death. A slow goodbye wrapped in doctor's visits and whispered, "I love yous." For others, it ended in courtrooms, divided assets, broken trust, and long silences with people they once couldn't sleep without. Either way, something changed. Not in their capacity to love, but in their need to prove it again. Because when you've loved someone with everything you had, when you've stayed through seasons most people would have fled, when you've said goodbye with dignity, whether to a casket or a lawyer, you don't look for a replacement. You carry a memory. And memories like that? They aren't meant to be replaced. They're meant to be respected. A 2023 Pew Research study found that among men over 60, 43% of widowers never remarry, even when they have the opportunity. This isn't because they've closed their heart. It's because their heart already holds something too precious to displace. They don't wake up lonely. They wake up remembering. And often that's enough. People often ask, "Don't you want to find love again?" As if love is something you lose like a wallet. As if it's something to replace, like a worn coat. But love, real love, stays. Not in form, but in imprint. It's in the way he still sets one side of the bed a little neater, still buys her favorite tea, still flinches when a certain song plays too unexpectedly in the grocery store. And no, he's not stuck in the past. He's simply not rushing into something just to feel less alone. Because at 60, love is no longer a quest. It's a memory. A quiet cathedral he visits, not a house he's eager to rebuild. And some things sacred are better left untouched. He values freedom over formality. When he was younger, partnership meant structure. It meant checking in, syncing calendars, balancing schedules, negotiating space, emotion, logistics, and energy. It meant adjusting his routine to meet someone else's rhythm. And in many ways that was beautiful. He learned patience, flexibility, how to build a shared life. But what he also learned, often silently, was how much of himself he had to shelve to make it work. He put off hobbies he loved, muted opinions to avoid arguments, shared his weekends with obligations he never signed up for, family events, double dates, Sunday brunches he never quite enjoyed. And now? Now he wakes when his body tells him to. Not an alarm, not a voice asking, "Are you up yet?" He eats when he's hungry, not at 7 because someone said it's dinner time. He drives out into the woods just to hear nothing, no questions, no reminders, no small talk. And here's the beautiful part. He doesn't miss being needed all the time. He doesn't miss having to justify his quiet. He doesn't miss the constant performance of showing up, even when his soul is tired. To him, freedom is not defiance. It's healing. It's not about pushing people away. It's about finally sitting in your own presence without guilt. He used to think being in a relationship made him better. Now, he knows that being in tune with himself makes him whole. And this shift isn't just emotional, it's observable. According to the UCLA Longevity Study, 2022, men over 60 who remarry report lower levels of perceived autonomy and higher adjustment stress in the first 3 years of marriage, even in relationships they describe as loving. Why? Because the very fabric of marriage, even in its healthiest form, is interdependent. You must consult, coordinate, compromise. And at 60 plus, many men find that the more they do that, the more they quietly lose their rhythm. He doesn't mind partnership. He just doesn't want to lose his peace to maintain it. He likes making last-minute plans or none at all. He enjoys sipping coffee at sunrise without explaining why he's awake early. He values spontaneous solitude more than scheduled affection. And while others may call that selfish, he knows the truth. You can't pour into someone else if you keep draining yourself to do it. For him, love doesn't need to come with a ceremony. Peace doesn't need permission. Because after 60, he no longer wants the performance of being present. He wants the reality of being free and still full. He doesn't want to risk what he's built. By the time a man reaches 60, he's likely spent the better part of 4 decades building something quietly sacred. It may not be flashy. It may not look like much from the outside. But to him it's everything. A small house that finally feels like home. A porch he actually sits on. A bank account that no longer feels like a battlefield. A quiet routine that doesn't need to be explained or defended. He's not rich. He's not chasing legacy. He's chasing consistency. Because for years, maybe even decades, his life was defined by adapting, adjusting to another person's moods, splitting his attention between responsibilities and relationships, making space for needs that were never his, but always urgent. And now, he finally has space. Not just physical, but emotional. And here's the thing most people don't get. He's not afraid of commitment. He's afraid of collapsing the inner calm he spent years fighting for. Because remarriage isn't just emotional, it's legal, financial, structural. He's watched friends remarry in their 60s, only to watch their assets, homes, and retirement security unravel a few years later, not due to betrayal, but bureaucracy. According to a 2021 report from the National Center for Family and Marriage Research, men over 60 who remarry and later divorce lose an average of 45% of their retirement wealth. Why? Because late life separation isn't just personal, it's a tangle of shared property, revised wills, beneficiary battles, and emotional exhaustion. But even beyond the money, there's something more fragile at stake. His rhythm. He folds his shirts the way he likes. He reads in the afternoons. He plays Sinatra while cooking, even if no one hears. He has full control of his time, and he values that more than most people understand. People say, "Don't you miss companionship?" He answers, "I don't miss sacrificing my sanity to keep it." He's not closed off. He's not bitter. He's just protective. He's not looking for someone to fit into his life, and he's not willing to compress himself again to fit into someone else's, the brutally. At this age, peace is earned, not assumed. And it's not something he'll risk just to check a box that society still calls complete. Love? Maybe. Connection? Sure. Marriage? Only if it doesn't cost him what he fought to reclaim. Because what he has now, the quiet, the control, the calm, it took years, and it's not up for negotiation. He's tired of starting over. There was a time when starting over sounded hopeful. A fresh beginning. A clean slate. New stories. New laughter. New hands to hold. But now, in his 60s, it doesn't feel like hope anymore. It feels like exhaustion. Because no one tells you that starting over at this age isn't just about dating again. It's about retelling your entire life story. The "where did you grow up?" The "how long were you married?" The "what happened between you and her?" The "do you still talk to your kids?" The "what are you looking for now?" And he gets it, people need context. But after a while, it starts to feel like an interview. And he's not applying for a position in someone else's life anymore. He's already built a life. He doesn't want to audition for another one. Dating in your 60s also comes with a quiet pressure no one talks about. The pressure to prove you're still open, still emotionally available, still capable of loving. But what if he is open, just not willing to shapeshift again? What if he's emotionally available, just not interested in relearning someone else's preferences from scratch? He doesn't want to ask if she likes eggs over easy or scrambled. He doesn't want to guess whether silence means she's tired or upset. He doesn't want to relearn birthdays, allergies, pet peeves, past hurts, favorite music, or the entire subtle choreography of how to love someone new. Not because he's incapable, but because he's finally grown comfortable in loving himself. He's not cynical. He's just finished with the cycle. And dating today? It's not what it used to be. Apps, texting games, situationships. Trying to decode emojis from someone who says, "I want something real," but means, "I want something easy." 4. A 2022 AARP survey found that 58% of men over 60 feel emotionally drained by the modern dating process, not because they don't care, but because they care differently now. They're not chasing chemistry. They're chasing compatibility. And often they don't find it not because the world is empty, but because they've changed. He used to date to find love. Now, he protects love by not dating carelessly. He's tired of explaining himself, tired of being charming, tired of being interesting enough to hold someone's attention through a dinner menu and small talk. He's not afraid of starting over. He's just no longer willing to burn his energy to build what may collapse again. Because after 60, peace is no longer something he stumbles into. It's something he preserves. And if he's already found it, why start again? He's comfortable in his own company. There was a time when solitude felt like punishment. He used to turn on the television the moment he walked into the house, not to watch anything, but to avoid the sound of his own thoughts. He used to keep the radio on in the car just to fill the silence. He used to scroll through old contacts, debating whether to reach out, just to prove he wasn't entirely alone. But that man is gone now, because somewhere between heartbreak and healing, between the rush and the stillness, he discovered something surprising. He likes his own company, not tolerates it, not gets by with it. He genuinely enjoys it. He likes how quiet the kitchen is when he makes his coffee, how no one critiques how he folds the towels, how his thoughts come and go like birds on a wire, and he lets them, without judgment. Solitude is no longer a void. It's a presence his own. He knows the rhythm of his day better than anyone else. He doesn't need someone to ask him how he slept. He already checked in with himself, and he slept just fine. He's not anti-connection. He's just no longer willing to fill his life with half-hearted company to avoid brief moments of quiet. A 2021 study from the University of Michigan on emotional resilience in aging men found that those who reported positive solitude, defined as time alone without emotional distress, also showed higher self-esteem, better health, and greater life satisfaction than their peers. That's not loneliness. That's self-partnership. He laughs at his own jokes. He rereads his favorite books without explaining why. He listens to the same songs on repeat because they carry memories no one else understands. And if he cries sometimes while doing the dishes, that's fine too. He no longer rushes to distract himself from his feelings. He meets them like an old friend who stopped by for tea. People often ask, don't you miss having someone to talk to every day? And the answer is, sometimes, sure, but not enough to sacrifice the peace he's found. Because what most people don't realize is this: there's a kind of companionship that only comes when you're not performing, when you don't have to be charming, when you don't have to explain the quiet, because the quiet itself becomes enough. He doesn't fill his calendar to feel alive. He doesn't chase weekend plans to avoid the mirror. He sits, he walks, he breathes, and in the sacred space of being okay with himself, he found something deeper than attention: acceptance. He's seen what can go wrong and doesn't want to relearn that. He's not afraid of love. Let's get that straight. He's just no longer naive about it. Because after 60, a man has seen too much to romanticize blindly. He's watched friends, strong, thoughtful men, walk into second marriages with hope and walk out with confusion, debt, and a sense of having lost themselves. He's seen the smiles fade, the compromises creep in, the small comments that became patterns, the casual control that turned into obligation. And for some, it wasn't abuse. It wasn't even betrayal. It was simply this: slow erosion of self, of silence, of peace. He's watched men give up their homes, pensions, routines, and even friendships just to hold on to something that looked like love but felt like performance. And he's been there too. He knows the quiet anxiety of wondering whether your boundaries make you distant. Henceforth, the unease of being managed emotionally, where every need you have is met with a subtle counter-need that's somehow always more important. He remembers how hard it was to say, "I'm tired," and how often that tiredness was interpreted as lack of effort. He's seen how easily affection can become expectation, how being there turns into being responsible for someone else's healing. And most of all, he's learned that trust isn't just about fidelity, it's about emotional safety. And that's harder to find than most people admit. According to a 2020 study published in the Journal of Aging and Society, nearly 40% of older men cited fear of emotional vulnerability, legal risks, and loss of independence as primary reasons for avoiding remarriage, even when they had active dating lives. Because it's not just the big things that break a man down. It's the accumulated erosion of being unseen, of being expected to carry more than he can explain, of being told that love means never prioritizing himself. Now, he chooses peace over pressure, discernment over desire, clarity over chemistry. It's not that he doesn't believe in love. It's that he doesn't believe in losing himself to have it. He'll walk beside someone, but he won't walk through the fire again just to prove he can survive it. He knows what can go wrong. He's lived it. He's paid the price. And he's not here to retake the same test hoping for a different grade. Because the lesson he finally learned: real love doesn't ask you to forget what it cost to rebuild yourself. And if it does, it's not worth the risk. At the end of the day, this isn't a rejection of love. It's a recalibration of what matters most. Some men over 60 choose not to remarry. Not because they've given up, but because they've grown. They know peace. They know their patterns. They know what it cost to come home to themselves. And now, they're not willing to trade that back for paperwork, pressure, or pretense. They don't need a partner to feel full. They just need truth. If that's you, leave a comment below. I didn't quit on love. I just came home to peace. And if someone younger is watching this, don't wait until 60 to learn what freedom really means. Start by asking, what am I clinging to that's costing me my calm?